Hello my lovelies and welcome to the channel. Today I'm making sauerkraut. Now, why make it when you can buy it in the shops, I hear you ask? And that is a very good question. Now the reason that I don't buy it from the shops is A, I really don't like the texture, and B, most of the stuff, not all, but most of the stuff you buy in the shops has been pasteurized. So all of the good bacteria that you're buying it for has been killed off. So it kind of defeats the purpose. Now, I have got two beautiful red cabbages here, and I'm just peeling the outer leaves off. Now, I'm discarding the very outer leaves, but the ones that are just under those outer leaves, I'm going to keep a hold of because they will serve a very important purpose later on. So I'm just going to cut the cabbages into quarters, and I'm going to take that woody core out. But how beautiful are they? I mean, nature is just absolutely amazing, isn't it? It really is. Just those amazing patterns. I marvel at them all the time when I'm looking at plants and think, how is it possible for things to grow like that and just be so beautiful? So now that I have quartered up and cored the red cabbages, I'm going to put it on the electric meat slicer. And yes, I know you're probably shouting at me, where is the guard? Put the guard on, Frugh. But it's okay, I will put it on later. I promise. It's just easier to hold the quarters of red cabbage when they're this big on like this to maintain the pressure. Now, I discovered that that bowl was a bit too tall. Um, but you can see that it's slicing up nicely. I know that's going through quite a woody part, but it is slicing up. I've set the thickness to about 4 mil thick, so I think that's a pretty good thickness. Anyway, a quick dish change and we will get cracking again. So I'm going to turn this meat slicer on and keep going. And there's the guard, as promised. Although I find it did make things a bit easier, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Now, in hindsight, I probably would have been just as quick using a knife chopping this. It wouldn't be as uniform, but I probably would have been just as quick, if not quicker. But you live and learn, and I'd wanted to try it on this slicer machine just to see how it turns out. So when it's ready, it'll be interesting to see. We have put it through like the slicer plate on a food processor before, and that did work quite well. But we found we have to chop the portions of cabbage up a lot finer than even these quarters. Certainly for my machine, because the opening for it just isn't big enough to put anything these size in. So there is the first quarter done, and as you can see, it's shredding up really nicely. I just like to give a wee clean down every time. I put a fresh quarter on just to make it easier to tidy up afterwards. But I'm just going to move that away from the back there and crack on. Now that I've finished shredding the first cabbage, I'm going to weigh it out. Now it's really important that you weigh the cabbage because this will determine how much salt you use. Now to make sauerkraut, it is really simple. You need two ingredients, cabbage and salt. Now I've seen a lot of recipes say take one head of cabbage and 2 tablespoons of salt, but that isn't necessarily going to work because each head of cabbage will weigh something different. Now the method that I use is to weigh the cabbage, and then you use a 2% ratio of salt to cabbage, and this is what will give you your brine. Now, if you have a particularly old one, you may need to make a separate brine up with salt and water just to top that up. But for the most part, the cabbage should give you enough liquid to create its own brine. Now, this came to a kilo all in, so I'm going to use 2% salt to that, and we will see how we get on with it. So I've finished shredding up that second cabbage, and just like we did with the first one, I am going to weigh it out. This was ever so slightly heavier, but not much, but that will be factored in when I weigh the salt out, and yeah, the process is exactly the same. But before I do, I really would like to show some appreciation for fabulous natural dyes. I'm going to show you my hands. How stunning is that purple? Now that we have finished admiring the colour purple, I'm going to weigh the salt out. So, like I mentioned earlier, it is a 2% ratio of salt to cabbage. So I'm weighing out 20 grams of sea salt here. Now, it's really important not to use table salt or iodized salt. We need to use sea salt or Himalayan salt, or salt that just hasn't had any additives. Now I'm quickly weighing out the salt for the second batch, just because I may as well get it done. And I can never ever get it quite right first time, but we can live in hope. So I'm just going to sprinkle that on top of this second batch. Now I could put it all in one great big bowl, but I just thought it would be easier to do it in 2 smaller bowls to begin with, certainly. And there's 2 tools you can use. The first being our hands, and the second is like the end of a rolling pin or a muddling stick, but I'm just going to get in there with my hands. They're purple anyway, and they were stained for quite a few days afterwards, but that's okay. That's all part of the fun. If you're really worried about it, sorry, my teeth just aren't in today. If you're really worried about it, you could wear gloves, but I'm not that precious. So what we're doing here is we are massaging the salt in, and we're squeezing the cabbage. What this is doing is it's helping to break down the fibres and release the moisture that's contained within it. Now, I've roped my teenage daughter in to help me. She is a wee bit precious and decided she was going to wear gloves. But like I said, each of us is different, and so we're just going to carry on doing this for 5 minutes or so until they're all broken down, and then we will take it from there. So I have combined the 2 bowls of sauerkraut. As you can see, the amount has gone down a lot. They're in the 1 bowl. I have put a plate on top and weighed it down with some tins of chopped tomatoes. This is just to help put the pressure on and help release some of that moisture to create the brine. So these are going to sit for, I will leave it to sit for 1 or 2 hours, just depending on what else is going on. So this sauerkraut to be has had its time and it's ready to jar up now. So I have got a clean jar and a canning funnel just to make life a bit less messy, because there's enough tidying up to do in this world without creating extra work for oneself. So as you can see, I'm using a clip top jar. You could use a jar with a 1-piece lid or a 2-piece lid. You can get special tops that go on 2-piece lid jars that either have an airlock, or you get, it's like a silicone thing that sits on top with a wee, I don't want to call it a nipple, but it looks like a nipple on top that's got like a crosshatch on it that releases any air, which means you don't have to burp the jar. And yes, I know, you burp a baby, you don't burp jars, but yes, you do burp jars. When you are fermenting, the gases build up and you need to allow those gases to release. Otherwise, you can get explosions or you get leakages. With the clip top jar, you are less likely to need to burp. You will still need to do some burping, but nowhere near as much as if you just have like a regular lid. And how long you need to burp it for is dependent on how active your ferment is. Now, by using the salt like this method is called lactofermentation, and it creates really, really amazing bacteria that is great for your gut. So this is a wonderful accompaniment to have with meals, or even just on its own if you are trying to get your gut bacteria into a better state of health. I don't know if you can see in the bowl there, kind of behind that canning funnel, but there is quite a lot of brine in the bottom there. I know it doesn't look a lot, but you don't need that much because the cabbage is going to continue to create its own brine. I'm trying to pack as much into this jar as I can. I'm probably going to end up overfilling it. But one of the really good practices when you're doing lactofermentation is to make sure it sits in either a bowl or on a tray, something that's going to catch any potential overspill. But I'm just going to go ahead and keep packing this in because I don't want to waste any of this goodness. And I'm probably reaching capacity here. I think I'll have just about reached capacity. The canning funnel is not going to really take much more. So we'll see what else we can get in there. And somebody's come to look for something. But you can see that liquid in the bottom of the bowl there. Yep, someone's put the kettle on, so please excuse the steamy screen. It's the joys of filming with family, but they are part of this household, so they will be featuring in the videos. Now I'm quickly going to run and get another jar, just because there's too much to go in here, and I think I've overfilled it as it is. So as if by magic, here I come with another jar, and I'm just going to go ahead and fill that up. And as I start filling this, I realise I was maybe a bit over enthusiastic with picking the size of jar. It's a bit big, but I'll fix that later. I will get a smaller jar and put that in. That's not a problem, but you can really see how much brine there is there. It's pretty amazing how much comes out. And I know I keep saying it, but it really, I don't know, there's something about fermentation and creating your own foods. There's just something about it that's really, really special. And I find it quite amazing. I don't know about you. Now, I'm going to let you into a little secret here. I don't actually like cabbage. I know. Why am I making sauerkraut? I hear you ask. I don't like cabbage, but I actually really, really like red cabbage sauerkraut. It's strange but true fact. Why? I don't know. But there's something about the tanginess of it that's actually really, really addictive. I mean, you put it with stews or even lasagna or stuff like that. I don't know. It it enhances whatever you put with it. So there you go. I'm finally using that brine that I was banging on about. And I'm just topping this up so you can see that it's gone in there. And I'm putting a fermentation weight in here. And this just holds everything underneath the liquid so that no air can get to it. This is really, really important because if you have anything that is out from under the liquid, it can go mouldy, and that is going to cause you problems. I'm not doing a very good job there of showing you what it looks like. The light is atrocious, but you get the idea. So I have a project coming up quite soon that is going to need some dried orange slices. So I went and picked these oranges up from the supermarket last night, and I'm just going to go ahead and slice them. I'm not using any machinery this time. Just going to use a serrated knife and cut the slices nice and thin. These are probably about 3 or 4 mils thick. And yeah, it takes no time at all to slice these oranges with this knife. That's not a bother at all. Now I've got all the oranges sliced up and it's time to put them on the trays. So I have got these metal trays for our dehydrator and they're great. You know, stuff doesn't stick to them, and you could put some baking parchment down if you had something that was really fine, but these slices are absolutely perfect and they're not going to fall through. So now that I have finished slicing everything up and putting them on trays, it's time to switch the dehydrator on. So our dehydrator is from a company called Sous Vide, and it has a rear fan, which means that the air circulates a lot better throughout. You can get ones that the fan is at the bottom, but it means you have to keep changing the trays around. Alternatively, you can put them in a fan forced oven and just wedge the door open with a tea towel. But you know, I've got the dehydrator, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and use. So my teenage daughter came and asked me the other day if I could make Yorkshire puddings to go in the freezer. So that's what I am going to go ahead and do. For those of you with kids on the spectrum, you know that when your child shows an interest in eating something, you will make it for them and make sure it's there, because getting food into them sometimes can be really, really hard work. Yes, they go through phases of wanting to eat the same thing over and over, and I'm well aware that this phase will probably pass quite quickly, but whilst we're in it, I'm going to roll with it and batch cook some Yorkshire puddings. It's something simple that she can pull out the freezer and reheat and have with whatever she chooses, you know, when she wants to. And if she doesn't have them, then it means that these are ready in the freezer for Christmas. You know, it's something that I don't have to think about. And I know you're probably rolling your eyes and going, oh my goodness, why are you talking about Christmas? But it's not actually that far away. And I, I really, really am a big advocate for batch cooking and preparing ahead of Christmas Day. I know it's just a big roast dinner. However, it can be very stressful, especially when you've got young children running about the place. So, anything you can do to take stress off yourself on the day, I highly advise that you do it. So, you're probably wondering what I am doing here. What I am doing is I am spooning little bits of lard into the cupcake trays. Um, Now you could use uh, an oil if that's what you choose to use, but I find that lard works really, really well. Um, and we prefer to cook with it when and where we can. Some things it doesn't work so well with, but things like Yorkshire puddings or roast potatoes and things like that, it works really, really well. And you can see I have a big jar of it. I actually need to process some more, but we'll get round to that. Anyway, now that we have the lard in the cupcake tins or muffin tins, whatever you want to call them, I have preheated my oven to 210 degrees Celsius. Not quite sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but I'm sure you can do the comparisons yourself. And I'm just going to put these in and let that lard heat up and melt. Whilst we're waiting for the lard to melt, I'm going to go ahead and make the Yorkshire pudding batter. So I've got 140 grams of plain flour in a bowl, and I'm actually being slightly organised to pull the bin over. I'm going to go ahead and crack in 4 eggs to the flour. Usually I'm walking backwards and forwards to the bin, but not today. I'm feeling organised. I'm feeling on it. It doesn't happen that often, but I'm going to celebrate when it does, because you should celebrate all the small wins, in my opinion anyway. So one last egg, I think. Yep, there we are. And put that bin away. Then we're just going to mix the egg and the flour till it's decently combined. It's going to look a little bit lumpy. I probably picked the wrong whisk for this job to start with anyway, but it's fine and it all works out perfectly well. So I'm just going to go stirry, stirry, stir, stir. And the dog is dancing about. He thinks he's going to get a treat, but he's not. He keeps forgetting I'm the mean one. David's the one that gives him scraps of meat, not me. Anyway, I think he's got the message now and he's wandered off. Now I am going to measure out 200 mils of milk. Now we are lucky enough to get our milk straight out the tank from our next door neighbour. So we use raw milk and we absolutely love it. I know a lot of people freak out at the thought of raw milk, but I don't know, there's just something about it. It's so, I don't want to say decadent, but it's just so much more creamy and tastes so much nicer than any of the pasteurised stuff that you get in the shop. I know there'll come a day where we won't have access to it, and that will make me very, very sad. So for now, I'm really, really enjoying having access to this raw milk. I'm just stirring this. It's quite a thin batter, and I'm trying to get as many of the lumps out as I can, but it's just not working, so I have to tip all the milk in and just work this batter and make sure that it's all fully combined. But as you can see, it doesn't really take long to make Yorkshire pudding batter. I know, again, you can buy these pre-made, but there's something just really nice about making it yourself. As you know, it's probably cheaper to make your own than buy the pre-made frozen ones. Now that I have finished mixing this batter, I'm going to tip it into the jug just to make it easier to portion out. So now that we have our batter made, and we're going to give ourselves a facial with the steam from the oven. That's not smoke, I promise. You can see that the lard has melted. So I'm just going to quickly pull a tray out at a time and very, very quickly pour this batter in. So it's really, really important that you do this quickly because you don't want the hot fat to cool down. The whole point of pouring it into the hot fat is that it gives you that really lovely crispiness that you get from Yorkshire pudding. So I'm being a wee bit tentative with this first tray. I know it's a smaller one, but I want to stretch the batter and make sure that it, I'm able to get the full 24 out of it. So these ones go back in the oven straight away, and I'll pull out the second larger muffin tin. And again, very quickly, just pour this batter into each of the sections. So do you make your own Yorkshire puddings? What do you like to have them with? My youngest daughter, she couldn't say Yorkshire pudding when even up until about a year and a half ago, she just could not say the word Yorkshire. So for us, they'll be forever known as Ork'shire puddings. And we find it funny anyway. You might not, but I know it's a family joke. But yeah, it amuses us. Anyway, we got there. We got the full 24. So this tray is going back into the oven. And I'm going to set the timer for roughly 25 minutes. But, I think it probably won't take that long. I'll probably give it about 20. But we'll see how we get on. I'm going to go take the dog for a quick wander down the road. Anywho, we are back. And again, we're having that free facial. Now, my oven runs slightly hot. I would love to put a thermometer in there just to get an accurate reading. A couple of them were ever so slightly nuked, but that's okay. We can live with that. But how amazing do these look? They have puffed up beautifully. I am really, really pleased with them. And I'm going to leave these to sit and cool down. And once they're cooled down, they will go in the freezer. So I wanted to show you some of the orange slices that I had dried, must be last year actually. So these are some blood oranges, so they've got that lovely tinge of red in them. But this is how the oranges I put in the dehydrator are going to turn out without the red tinge, obviously. But I am going to go ahead and make a simmer pot. It's that time of year and I want to make the house smell divine. And this is just a really beautiful way to do it. So I put a few of the orange slices, a star anise. Sorry if you can hear the dog trying to make a nest in the background. I am putting some cloves. I don't know if the camera's focusing very well on them, but there's about 3 cloves there. Dog's doing his old man grunts. Anyway, the cloves will go in the pot. And finally, I am going to put a stick of cinnamon. So 1 cinnamon stick. And that goes in there. There's about 1 litre of water in this pot here. So I'm going to show you what I do with the simmer pot. Now, I like to put it on top of the stove here with a fire, but if you don't have one of these, that's absolutely fine. You can put it on your stove top and just have it on low. But because I have the fire on to heat the house, I find this a really, really beautiful way to get that seasonal aroma through the house. Um, whilst the fire's on, the heat's there, so I'm making use of it. So I am ever so grateful for you to be joining me this week in the kitchen. And if you have enjoyed this, I would love it if you would share it with others. Hit that like and subscribe button. I release a new video every Thursday, so if you hit that subscribe button, you will be notified as soon as a new video is released. Until next time, my lovelies, take care of yourselves.